So I want to talk about the next trips that I had. I'm going to talk about the second one first because the second one wasn't as interesting as the first one that I had. I wanted it to be, but it wasn't. But anyways, so the second one that I had was a mix of 4-ACO DMT and 1P-LSD. The 1P-LSD dose was 130 micrograms and the 4-ACO was 15 milligrams. I thought that it was going to be a lot more powerful than it was. Originally I thought that it was going to synergize and was going to potentiate each other. I thought that the doses were going to combine to be a more powerful dose, but it ended up having an effect where the 1P-LSD just overpowered the 4-ACO DMT, so it just felt like a 1P-LSD experience that was kind of a bit more intense, but not to the level that I was trying to get to. The geometry that I had was practically exactly the same as the geometry that I had in the trip before, so it wasn't anything to write home about. I was hoping that I was going to get entities starting to emerge out of the geometry, but it just didn't really get me anywhere near that. The 4-ACO DMT didn't really come through for me. So, but I want to talk about the trip that I had before that, which was just like 21 milligrams of 4-ACO DMT. And it wasn't all that much more than what I took with the combination, but for whatever reason alone, it took me to, I eventually, I should start from the beginning. It took about like 2 hours to really get into the sort of peak area. Usually it should take a lot less. I don't really know what went wrong there. I don't really know if it went wrong. Maybe it's just my system, my digestion, but eventually it did come on, and the actual visuals, it's so interesting. There's this, I don't know if you want to call it an art style or just flavor, but you just tell when something is DMT-like, and you're just like, oh, that's coming from the DMT world. It should be the same as the LSD world, and because it's the same kind of patterning, but there's just a difference. There's a quality difference, not a quality difference, but there's a style difference or something. It's made out of the same stuff, but it's just like, it's different in a way. It's hard to really pinpoint. And especially the mental state too. The mental state is very different. Anything that's DMT related, if it's mushrooms, if it's 4-ACO DMT, if it's DMT, it puts you into this thing where I liken it to the symbiote in Spider-Man with like Carnage and Venom.
What's wrong? Cassidy is gone. There is only Carnage!
Simple tryptamines cause me to anthropomorphize my hands, so I often see them as if they were an entity, but they don't necessarily change in their shape and their appearance. They just change on the way that I perceive them, basically. I don't know exactly what causes this, but I just noticed that it doesn't happen with LSD. And the geometry that I was seeing was very cool because it was at the level where it was actually materializing into entities, and that's what I was looking for. So that's how you know that you're getting to like a higher level of geometry. And I don't really know if that can happen with LSD. I don't really know if it can start to materialize into entities the way that 4-ACO does. They didn't materialize in a way that I could interact with them. They were just more of a visual, kind of like you're watching it on a screen or something. But it was getting there. And I felt as if the ceiling was about to open up into the DMT world, but I was kind of on the edge of that, right? So it was a perfect spot for where I needed to be in terms of my experience right now, in terms of stepping myself back into the more interesting parts. But it's going well. I'm planning the next 30 milligram experience probably tomorrow. I think 30 milligrams is going to be a solid dose. That's not going to be anything too crazy, and I think that I have the experience built up right now because it's been a 2-year break, so it takes some time to. It's like learning to play the piano again. You need to kind of get yourself back into it and kind of relearn the techniques that you need. But it's going good. I'm feeling confident about it. I'm hoping that I can get myself after this 30 milligram experience. I could start my explorations with DMT because that's the experiments that I want to do. I want to be able to actually draw the visual information that we experience. Because I tried to do that before, and it's just you got to find the right dose, because I think if you go too far in, if you go too high of a dose, then it's very hard to remember to remember things, because you kind of just get overwhelmed with what you're seeing, and you can't really latch on to anything because you forget about remembering. But I think if you do a more modest dose, maybe around the 20 milligram dose, I'm not too sure. I think that you can get into some deep spaces, but still kind of be in the frame of mind where you can be like, hey, I can try to remember the stuff that I'm seeing, because all I want to do is just get an accurate, any sort of information, any visual information that I can latch onto. Because there's stuff that you can latch onto. It's just I never have like a notebook ready for me to kind of like think like, oh, I'm gonna try to remember that thing that I'm seeing and then try to recreate it. And it's just to get information. It's just, we're not trying to, the idea is not to get any sort of philosophy or way of thinking about this, is because we let the scientific method kind of verify things. We're just gathering information. That's all we can really do, because we don't have any answers about what consciousness is and how it works. And I think that this stuff is very important to kind of give us more information about that. And whatever, this is my idea of how I think we can work to get some clues about how consciousness works, just through examining some of these materials that it generates through these compounds. So it's interesting, and I'm gonna explain more of my thoughts later once I have time to do that. But yeah, it should be fun for me, at least.